We could sit here and talk for hours of the miracles and how literally every single thing that lined up, if one thing did not line up, if one man was different, if like I said, 1 minute was different, I would not be standing here talking to you right now.
Definitely divine intervention.
I mean, no doubt. No doubt. I didn't save myself. There's no doubt.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Andreea Parc.
And I'm Dumitru.
And this is Alive.Again podcast, a podcast where attorneys and other professionals meet to discuss real life challenges and how our decisions shaped our journeys. Our guest today is Chelsey Klein. She is a survivor, author, and an inspiration to the entire world. Chelsey's story is one of unimaginable loss, incredible courage, and the resilience it takes to rise after falling, literally. She turned her experience into a book, Beyond the Edge, a survivor's tale. And today she's here to share what it truly means to keep going when life no longer looks the way you imagined. Thank you, Chelsey, so much for being here with us. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, inviting me on the call to do just that. So thank you.
It's such an inspiration to so many of us, and I would love to hear how you explain it, because the way we share our own stories, it's so unique. And thank you so much again for opening up for other people to learn from your experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
You survived a fall that took your boyfriend's life, and you summoned a great strength to not only live, but be back to where you were before. What do you think that strength was? That determination to live and be where you are right now?
Yeah, it's been a journey. So it's been 5 years, a little over 5 years. I guess it was 5 years in September. And there's been a lot of soul searching, right? A lot of reflection in these last 5 years, a lot of growth, a lot of heartache. But I would say that there's a couple things that I really owe my survival to, and my strength. My faith is a huge part of just my mindset around understanding or trying to understand when things don't go our way, right? And when things are difficult and when tragedy happens, how do we overcome that? And for me, it's just this my faith in believing that there is a better outcome out there for me. I have a sports background, and I have, I've raised my parents are amazing and raised me as a very strong individual, and just that determination in me that will never go away, like I said, from sports and being competitive and just refusing to let something hold me down. But after my accident, yes, it was just that. I wanted to get back to life. I was determined. I realized, I survived and my boyfriend didn't. We fell on the same mountain, same pathway, but yet I survived. And so when I woke up, it was just literally woke up and and just thinking to myself, what is the purpose behind this? And to me, it was that I was given a second chance at life, and I was determined to make something of that. And again, because my faith, grateful for that, and grateful for realizing that, I didn't save myself on that mountain. And so I knew that it was my story, but I was never going to let it define me. And that's a big piece of all my struggles and difficult times that I've had throughout life, is those have shaped me and those have helped me grow into the person I am today. But I'm not going to let it hold me back or define me and play the victim of it. It's just my story. And then how do I be better from it? And so that's what I owe a lot of it. A lot of it too is just that resilience in me, believing that I survived for a reason, going and trying to find that purpose, right? And believing that I was given the second chance at life, and then not letting that go to waste.
And surviving so many things that happened that were miraculous.
Yes.
Yeah, let's ask any more questions. Can you give us a brief description of your story?
Okay.
And
So
the background?
Picture 5 years ago, I was really into hiking with my boyfriend. It was COVID. Everything was shut down, right? So my boyfriend and I, well, he was an avid hiker. He's from Colorado. He loved to hike. He did very technical hikes. He had climbed Mount Whitney. He was very experienced in it. And he helped me grow to love hiking. We started going out and we would hike just about every month. We would do really high technical hikes and we would be sore for weeks. So it would take us a month to recover. As we started getting higher and higher into the more advanced and technical climbs, we had some lofty goals. And one of them was to climb 14ers or 14,000 foot mountains. And there's only a couple here on the West Coast that are very prominent that are at 14,000 feet. And Mount Shasta is one of them. So we decided September 26th, we went out to go hike Mount Shasta up here in Northern California. Well, a couple things we did not, I don't know if we didn't do enough research on before we went, but Shasta is a glacier. And going and hiking a glacier in the end of September is not a good idea. But we would always tell ourselves on our hikes, we're going to prepare for the worst and we're going to pray for the best. And so we would have all of our gear. We would have everything with us. We went the night before and we bought my headlamp, right? Or my ice axe, my crampons, all the gear that we needed just in case, because we knew we were going on a glacier. And we treated it like any other normal day hike that we had always done leading up to Shasta. So we drove out there. We hiked about a mile or so. We would pitch a tent, stay in the tent, camp, wake up the next morning, and we would just do a day hike. So that's what we did. September 26th, we woke up in the morning. Mount Shasta is not a very long hike. So for us, it was an easy, like I said, day hike for us, but it was the elevation that causes the struggle and why it's so difficult and challenging. But we figured, we've done this before. So we start our hike and we get up to about 12,000 feet and we realize that it's about 4:30 in the afternoon. We went up on all rock and dirt. There was not ice. There were little patches of snow here and there, but that's understandable. You're hiking a mountain, you're hiking a glacier. That's what happened to us leading up to, on the other mountains that we had done earlier in the year. It just is what it is. Mountains have snow, but we didn't think anything of it. So we're up on all rock and dirt. We get up to 12,000 feet and we realize we don't have enough time to get down as we're fighting sunset. It's going to get dark. And although we had our headlamps and we had all of our gear, we did not want to have to go down this mountain on rock and dirt in the dark. So he said, Chelsey, we've got to turn around. We're not going to make it to summit. We've got to turn around. Well, all of a sudden we go to turn around and the entire mountain was covered in black ice, like rock solid ice. And I don't know how or what happened, but we literally were looking down and all we could see is ice. And we could see to the left of us, I want to say like maybe 30 yards away where the dirt was that we came up. But we couldn't get over to that dirt unless we crossed over this ice. So he's sitting next to me and he's helping me put all my gear on. Like I said, I had no experience doing any sort of technical hiking up to this point. I'd never used my ice axe. I'd never put crampons on my shoes. I'd never done any of that. I had a headlamp and a helmet that I was used to and hiking poles. So he's helping me. He's putting my crampons on my feet and he's sitting down next to me and he's like, okay, this is how it works. This is how you're going to use the ice axe, and he's coaching me through this before we're getting up. And I just remember sitting there on this ice thinking, oh my gosh, get me off this thing. I was so scared. I was so cold. It was windy. And all I just kept thinking was, I don't want to do this. I want to get off this mountain. But I didn't say anything. And I thought, you know what, like the athlete in me, right? The competitor in me, I'm like, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do this. We're going to get through this. We're going to do this together. So he's sitting next to me and he gets up to take 2 steps to lead the way, to go across, to go over to this dirt where we came up and slips and falls. So I see him go down this mountain and I'm just still sitting there watching him go down. I thank the Lord at 12,000 feet had phone service. I was able to pick up my phone. I called 911 and they said, well, you just reached the sheriff's department. We need to get the Shasta search and rescue team out to you. And they said, you can either stay where you are or it's going to take about 5.5 hours to get a helicopter out to you. Well, at this point, I don't know if Jeff is alive or not. I see him down at the bottom of the mountain. He's lying there. I'm screaming at him. He's not moving. And I don't know what to do. Right. And so I have them on the phone and they're asking me all these questions, where are you? And I'm like, I don't know. Just bring a helicopter out to me. So all of a sudden I see Jeff move and he gets up like almost in the snowboard stance and I could see him and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Jeff, and I'm screaming at him, Jeff, he's alive. And I'm on the phone still. And they said, well, if he's alive, you could try to get down to him, but it's going to take 4.5 hours. Well, at that moment I said, just get out here. And I got off the phone and I saw him fall a second time. I didn't know where he went. Obviously I was very, dismantled at that time. And I just got up and I tried to go down to him. And that's when I slipped and fell. I remember losing my ice axe and taking maybe 1 or 2 steps and falling. Then I don't remember a thing until all of a sudden I felt someone just like tugging at my waist. I felt a big jerk and I blacked out again. I woke up in the hospital. I broke my leg. So I have a metal rod and screws in my leg. I fractured my tib and fibula. I dislocated my shoulder. So I dislocated my clavicle. I fractured my spine. I fractured all my ribs. I had hypothermia. I had a concussion and I woke up in the hospital and I said, well, where's Jeff? Thinking he was in the room next to me. And they said, no, honey, he didn't make it, and put me back asleep. So I was in the hospital up in Reading for a week, essentially on, I say life support, just because, as you know, our mind and body have a lot of connection, right? When our body is injured, we're mentally stressed. When you're mentally stressed, your body can't recover. They were dealing with not only my own trauma, but then the trauma of them announcing that they had lost my boyfriend. They needed to just keep me stable. So I was up there for a week. My parents got the 2 a.m. phone call. They live in San Diego as well. And so they had to drive out there to Reading to get me out of the hospital and stayed with me for a week in the hospital while I essentially came out of this, some sort of a mental state of trauma, for them to be able to drive me home. I ended up living with my parents. I was obviously bedridden because I had a fractured spine, a broken leg that was already surgically done. So I woke up and my leg was already surgically worked on. I already had the metal rod and everything in my leg. They didn't do any surgery on my spine and they didn't do any surgery on my shoulder because they realized they needed to do one at a time, right? If I'm waking up and all of a sudden my shoulder, my spine, everything's done, I'm like literally immobile. So they did my leg first. So I, like I said, I woke up with my leg already surgically done, but I was essentially bedridden because of my spine and everything. I lived with my parents. I started walking after 5 weeks. I ended up having 4 surgeries in 6 months. 2 of them had to be done on my shoulder because they had to pull my shoulder back down. And it was, with hooks and screws and everything. And then was released from all medical supervision 7 months to the day of my accident, where I haven't seen or spoken to a doctor since. And I'm back to 100%. I'm running, I'm doing everything. I'm active and everything as if I had never had an injury. So physically I'm back, right? But I always like to say mentally I'm not, but in a good way. I don't want to say I'm necessarily grateful for it, right? I hate that something tragic has to happen, but sometimes, something tragic is usually when we wake up, and is usually when we realize the things that we've always wanted to realize, that, the cliches and everything that I write in my book. But that was another thing for me. These are the lessons that I've learned from it. And I'm grateful for it because I'm who I am now today. And I have changed. There's parts of me that I still battle with that wish it were kind of the old me. But at the same time, I know that this new me is actually where I'm supposed to be and who I want to be. And yeah, here I am, about a book and 5.5 years later. But
Yeah.
that's
And how
essentially the
old
gist
were
of it.
you?
So I must have been 33.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
First of all,
so many miracles, like you were saying, right, Andreea, about the headlamp and about how they found me and about how I stopped sliding. Well, first of all, the headlamp, I don't know if you want me to get into it, but the miracle of the headlamp.
Yes,
So,
please.
yeah.
That literally was what saved you.
Yes. So there's 2 things. There's the fact that I stopped sliding. That was not me. I didn't save myself. And that goes back to my faith, right? Like I'm literally a testimony. This entire accident, this entire process of how I was found, the helicopters, the elevation, it's all in the book. I don't know if speaking about it does justice if we have enough time, but the big piece, yes, was my headlamp. So I don't remember. And I was like trying to look back at pictures and trying to figure out how this thing stayed on my head. But long story short, my helmet ended up falling off. So right before we went down, we had our helmets and our headlamps on, right? And our headlamp was lit. My headlamp fell off and apparently was down by Jeff. But my headlamp stayed on my head and stayed lit on my head. So the point of that is when the helicopters were called, I ended up having to have 2 helicopters come out to get me. They sent the first helicopter out, which was the Shasta Search and Rescue Team helicopter, but they realized it was dark, right? They realized it was nighttime and they needed night vision, and they didn't have the night vision gear. So they ended up having to call the Black Hawk helicopter from the Army National Guard that had night vision. That helicopter just happened to be grounded in Mount Shasta that morning. So I don't know if you guys remember during COVID, I know you live on the East Coast, but there were horrible wildfires out here in California during COVID. One of the largest wildfires was out in Shasta, was out in Redding. That helicopter, the Black Hawk, was called out in the morning of September 26th because it was going out there to support CAL FIRE, who was fighting all those fires. If that helicopter wasn't called out there that morning, 1, I wouldn't have had night gear to come get me. But 2, it would have taken an additional at least 5.5 hours to get them to fly out. They needed to get their gear together. They needed to, I think it was coming from Oregon. Don't quote me, but it was coming from another state. They needed to get the gear. They needed to get the crew, right? So it would have taken at least another 5.5 hours to get me, on top of them already trying to come find me in those 4.5 hours. I would have not survived. With my hypothermia and with my condition, I would not have survived. So there's miracle 1. The other miracle is the helicopter, the Black Hawk, went up. It's only supposed to go about 10,000 feet. That's just standard elevation power that these helicopters can get. And again, I talk about this all in the book because I'm friends with, still to this day, the pilot of the helicopter and the man that was rescued, that came down and hoisted down and rescued me. I emailed them to give me detail of their perspective of what they went through. But they mentioned to me, they said, because of the weather, the direction of the wind, the temperature of the wind, it allowed this helicopter to get higher than 10,000 feet because it actually helps to elevate it, right? The wind and the direction of it. So even though it was only supposed to go to 10,000 feet, and ended up getting even higher because it needed to get up higher than me to hoist down, right? To pull me up. Well, this helicopter did a lap around the mountain and they couldn't find me. He said, Bobby, the pilot, he said, we did a lap. We went to the coordinates of what was sent when they pinged my phone, and they couldn't find me. Well, 1, because they didn't realize I had gotten off the phone and I went down, right? So my coordinates were not where they were originally pinged my phone. So they said they did a second lap around, and all of a sudden his co-pilot, from the corner of his eye, can see this tiny little light out of the corner of his eye. And he said, Bobby, that's her. So they went closer, and lo and behold, that little light that he saw out of his corner of his eye was this headlamp that was still lit on my head. So that is actually the book cover. So I don't know if you've noticed the star, right? That's lit up. I have a photo of the lens and the mountain, and this teensy tiny little white dot was the original photo that Bobby sent me. And that was their screenshot of them seeing me on this mountain, and how they were able to see me from the corner of his eye with this little headlamp, this little light that was lit for them to see me. So if that headlamp was not still on my head, like I said, my helmet fell off. And the fact that my headlamp was still on me, my headlamp is in my closet right now. So, if that headlamp was not intact, they told me straight up, there's no way I would have been found. They would have had to go the next morning, and I would not have survived by that time. So those are just a few miracles. Another miracle was when I slid. John, who was hoisted down, who got me, I was wide awake. Apparently I was just sitting there, like almost like Indian style, just waiting to be rescued. And he said what had happened was when I fell, there was like a little divot, like a little, like almost like a chair that I had hit going down the mountain. And my nails were all broken. If you look back at photos, my nails were broken. My fingers were swollen. Like I was clawing after something. I don't remember a thing, but like from photos, right? But there was like this little chair almost that I had like bumped into sliding. And that's what I was just perched up on, just sitting there waiting for them to get me. That is what had stopped my fall. So I ended up having to interview them for this book because I don't remember a thing. I was apparently wide awake in the helicopter. They were asking me questions, the normal, like, are you allergic to any medication? Are you in pain? I told them I had a little ankle pain. Well, come to find out, yeah, my leg was shattered. Besides that, I told them, I said, go get my backpack, because my backpack had fallen off. I'm just like totally awake. And they didn't even think I was hurt. When they originally took me to the first hospital, they took me to Shasta, the hospital in Shasta, which was the closest hospital. And they didn't think I was that hurt because I was just chatting with them and normal. And they took me in and they ended up doing a full body scan, right? Because I think at one point I probably started to slur and I was really hypothermic. And they realized in that moment, they're like, okay, she's too trauma. So they ended up taking me by ambulance to Mercy Redding because I was too trauma for Shasta. I don't remember being in the ambulance. I don't remember a thing. And I was wide awake the whole time. And I think that's the miracle of God protecting me there too. I think because I don't have trauma, right? I don't have trauma from falling. I don't have trauma from pain. I don't have trauma from sitting there alone on a mountain. I don't remember.
Night
I don't
for
remember
4
any
hours.
of it. For 4 hours. I don't remember any of it. I don't even remember being cold. To me, that's just another blessing that I was able to instill, because I don't have PTSD from it. When I first, got home and was going through my therapy and everything, there would be times where I remember I would, because it was winter time, right? And I remember I worked for a dental company, and I remember walking into an office and they had one of those like screensavers up on the TV, and it was, a beautiful mountain with snow, or, that obviously I've had my trauma, right? Or the sound of a helicopter. I remember my parents lived near a local small airport, and I would hear planes and helicopters. And so I've had my moments, don't get me wrong. But as far as trauma from falling, trauma from pain, like I said, that's just another miracle in itself. I don't. But that's the gist of the story.
What was your feeling when you interviewed the people from the helicopter and they told you what had happened to you? How did you feel?
Yeah, very emotional. I knew little bits, right? Just because he actually, the pilot, Bobby, he actually came to San Diego. I was able to meet him. So I had dinner with him, his wife, and his kids, and my parents. He has since retired from service, essentially. He, and we always joke, we're like, this was one for the record books, literally. For him to explain to me of all the years and all the missions. This man from Army National Guard, right? They're going and they're in combat, they're in war, they're doing all the things we can't even imagine. He told me, he said, your mission, it was a mission, right? Your mission was the most technical and scary and challenging mission I have ever done, to the point where he felt like he could retire afterwards, because he just thought, I've done it all. I've accomplished what I need to accomplish. So the details of him, I was very emotional, obviously crying, just so extremely grateful. And not just grateful for my survival, but grateful for him. Don't quote me. I don't know how many total there are in our country of the men pilots of his degree. And I think there's only a handful that have enough experience, the years that he's had, the experience that he's had, being able to maneuver the helicopter the way that he did. And he explains it all in the book about the challenges he had to get to, of just making sure that the rotor didn't hit the side of the mountain, right? I mean, things that we wouldn't even think about with the wind and pushing it up against the mountain. I mean, the technicality that he had to go through, nobody else could have done that. No other pilot could have done that. And the fact that he was my pilot, he is why I survived. So not only grateful for the fact that it happened to be there, right? It all lined up. The helicopter was there. They had the night vision. Everything literally could not have gone smoother. What he also said was, if one thing would have been different, one thing, 1 minute of time, right? Because time was of the essence, they would not have been able to do it. And he even said there's a rule where whenever they get a call, whenever anybody of, and like these groups, right, these crews, they get a call to do some sort of mission, there's a crew of 4, and they sit and they essentially do a vote, and they say, okay, here's where we're at, this is what's going on, this is what we're going to be going through. It's 4 to go, or if one says no, they don't go. So if one man would have said, no, this isn't going to work for us, they wouldn't have done this. So all 4 men that were involved agreed to say, you know what? We've got to just try. We've got to try. And if it wasn't for that, they wouldn't even have done it. So my gratitude, the fact that I had these men, that he was my pilot, that John was the man that came down to rescue me as a pararescue man. It was a mix between Army and Air Force. They had never even flown together. I mean, you guys, there's so much that goes into this. We could sit here and talk for hours of the miracles and how literally every single thing that lined up, if one thing did not line up, if one man was different, if like I said, 1 minute was different, I would not be standing here talking to you right now.
Definitely divine intervention.
I mean, no doubt. No doubt. I didn't save myself. There's no doubt.
So because obviously you said that you had a few PTSD things and some things that really stuck with you. I mean, obviously, how can they not? What was that mental therapy that you have gone through and continue to go through? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful for my therapist. And she actually, I've seen her for years. I believe in it. I love in it. I love it. I think everybody should speak to somebody. So she's been a very, very close now friend of mine for years. And so it happened, obviously I went immediately to her. And the biggest piece for me was I never really had, there's something called survivor's guilt, right? I didn't look at it as survivor's guilt. I looked at it as more so of not why, I guess you could say why I survived. Like, why was I saved? So that's been a big piece for me as like finding this purpose for myself. I've made a lot of career changes. I'm 3. So I went back to work. So I was working. So this is also kind of interesting. I was working for a company called Stryker. It's a medical device company. So I worked in medical device sales during COVID. Well, as you know, during COVID, so I was going into spinal surgeries. I was going in, scrubbed in with doctors, standing on operating tables, doing what's called vertebral compression fractures. Well, weird fact, when I woke up in the hospital, my fractured spine was a vertebral compression fracture. I literally fractured my spine of what I did for a living. So I went back to work after 5 months and had surgeries up until 2 weeks before going back to work. And I just remember standing at the operating table, and it was a very strenuous job. I mean, I was living the life of a doctor, right? I wasn't necessarily on call, but you kind of are, things happen, and I'm running all over town and trying to support my doctors in these surgeries. And so it was very demanding. And I just remember standing at that operating table thinking, what am I doing with my life? this rat race that I felt like I lived in, right? This just get up and go, and get up and get through your day and go home. And it was in that moment that I just realized, I don't think I survived for this. I don't think I went through what I went through to survive to come right back into the same rat race. So I ended up changing careers. I went to a different company. And so that was a big piece, like leading back to, what I went through with my therapist and what we talked a lot about, and this wrestling that I've done mentally is more so of, what's my purpose? Why did I survive? What was the point of this? I think a big point is to share the story. I think it's I love the thing that I love the most in life, and I work in sales, but I hate using that word because I don't feel like I sell. I love to motivate. I love to inspire. I love to teach people. And I love that aspect of life. Right. And so when this all happened, I just realized, you know what, like if there's something I could do to share this story to help just that, to motivate, to inspire, to give hope, um, to relate, right? And that goes back to just the vulnerability of my book and my story, and just being like, you know what? If I can help one person, if I can motivate and inspire one person, I've done my job. I've survived for a reason. So I would say that's been the biggest part of navigating is not necessarily navigating the PTSD, because like I was saying earlier, I don't have a lot of that. It's now what? Like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And so that's why, writing my book was a big piece of that. It's so that when, you know, 80 years from now, just because I'm, when I'm no longer on this earth, it's something I could leave behind that somebody can pick up, and maybe at that moment they're dealing with loss. Maybe at that moment they're struggling with trying to find their purpose, or realizing that trauma doesn't define us, or all the lessons that I've taken that are in this book that seem to be really cliche, right? The life's short, the surrender, give up control, all the things that are cliche, but I purposely put those in the book because that they're cliche for a reason. Like, it's true. So I've just really tried to hone in on that and really focus on my purpose of survival, and being able to work through that with my therapist. I'm at a different place in my life. It's been 5 years, and I'm very blessed that, I hate to say it, that I don't have to see her, but at the same time, it's still something I deal with every day. I still wake up every single day choosing to have the mindset of, what is my calling? What is my purpose? I refuse to wake up feeling uncomfortable mentally or physically ever again, right? I've learned how to say no. I've learned how to have boundaries. I've learned how to, I call it surrender. It's not necessarily giving up. That's a big part of the book. Is there are multiple times in the hike, even sitting there being scared, needing to call for help. I should have called for help. I should have given up, and I didn't. So I'm learning now to have that boundary for myself of, it's surrendering, right? And just really trying to make sure that, I have, like, in my mind, as I played volleyball at the University of Texas in Austin, and something that we would always say on my team was, leave a legacy. How do we leave a legacy? And so that's what I think about every morning when I wake up. Who can I go smile at today on the street? Who can I go just be nice to, right? Who can I go make an impact on today to leave my legacy behind? Maybe it's in this book, maybe it's in this podcast episode, or maybe it's just the stranger on the street. But, like, it's just that mindset shift of realizing I'm here for a reason, and I need to do something with it. And we all are, right? Otherwise we wouldn't have woken up this morning. And so that's just the reminders that I try to give to myself and others, is there is a purpose behind our pain. There is a purpose behind why we are waking up this morning. We might not know it. We might not see it. We might not feel it. But if we have that right mindset about it, then, we're doing enough.
Yeah, it's the miracle of waking up every morning.
It really is. And I hate to say that sometimes we don't see it, right? I didn't see it. We always say it.
We don't.
Life's short,
We
hug your
don't.
people, say you love them.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. And you mentioned that rock bottom, and I love this quote of
Yes.
yours, rock bottom will teach you strength more than any mountaintops.
Yes. One of my favorites. Yep. And that was the hardest hike. That is probably one of the hardest physical activities I've ever done in my life. And I've been through a lot. I played volleyball at the University of Texas. Like I said, I've been played sports my entire life. I have been pushed very, very hard. And I'm a firm believer in this. I always say I'm more proud of my failures than I am my success, because I cannot learn, I cannot get better, I cannot be better if it's not for failing and learning how to get through the hard times. And so that's that quote, it's exactly that, right? We are actually at our highest when we're at rock bottom, because there's another quote that I always tell myself: you never know how strong you are until you have to be. And that's exactly what had happened. I don't look back, and honestly, I don't really remember a lot of my recovery. I don't really remember a lot of what I went through and call it the first 4 weeks of my accident, when I'm still bedridden and not talking. There are moments that stick out to me. Like, I remember not even being able to get myself up to go to the bathroom. I remember at times being in so much pain. I'm like, I could barely breathe, right? But not like very few and far between of moments are my still also looking back in like the PTSD of my recovery, because you're just in it. You just go through it and you persevere and you don't. And so, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for that mindset that I've had, because I truly, truly believe I'm the most proud of my failures and my struggles, because that is why, and that is how I'm as strong as I am today. And that is why I'm where I'm at today. Because sure, yes, we can learn from our success, right? But I don't think the way that you can with your failures.
That's so true. And basically, you set your mind to go through this, and your mind just blocked everything else.
Yeah, it
The
really did.
pain, the suffering.
And that's why I always like to say, you never know how strong you are until you have to be. Um, because that's exactly what happened. I just took the bull by the horns and I thought, this is what's in front of me right now. This is what God has given me. And what are you going to do about it, Chelsey? Are you going to sit and play the victim? Are you going to just sit in bed and cry? Or are you going to get up out of bed and you're going to go to physical therapy and you're going to push through the pain and you're going to mentally go see your therapist to work through your trauma and to work through your emotions? I thank God I chose to do something about it. Every day that we wake up, you have two choices. I've chosen to push forward, because to me, there's no other way.
If there is someone who listens and goes through loss or fear or uncertainty or something,
A recovery from an injury.
recovery,
Yeah.
what would you tell them?
It is okay to be in pain. It is okay and good to grieve. You have to go through that. But at some point, and hopefully sooner than later, you can make that decision of everything that I was saying. It does not define us, right? There is nothing we can do about what has been done. The only thing we can do is to learn from it and move forward and try to move forward better than when you were before it happened. And that's not to take away the pain. That's not to take away the sadness. That's not to take away from that journey. But everything that I've been saying, right? Like we just need to choose to move forward and realize, in my heart, I'm grateful for my faith. I'm grateful for the belief that everything happens for a reason. and there is a better outcome for me. I might not see it right now. I didn't see it 5 years ago, but if I look to see where I am right now, I'm better. I'm a better person. I'm in a better job. I'm in a better, I'm better physically. I mean, I think about everything. Like, I am just so grateful for who I am now and what I've done in these last 5 years to get to where I'm at. Did I see it then? No. But I truly believe that there is something better. And we just have to keep our eye on that and just believe in that and pray on that. And that's just like the only way I can get through hard times. That's the only way I could get through things that I can't understand. When things go wrong and I don't understand and I get angry maybe for a minute, I just have to go back to, but you know what? There is a purpose in this pain. There is a better outcome in this. Maybe it's the lesson that I learned from it. Now that I changed my career, maybe it's now that I have my boundaries and I have better, I'm learning how to surrender on things and to say no more. Like, there's always something you can find, and dig into that and just search for that and hold on to that truth and hold on to that positive outcome. It will come.
Before I ask you the last question, before the accident, when you were working and you were in this rat race,
Yeah.
have you had any signs that you need to change something in your life? Any feelings, any off feelings that you're not doing something right?
Well, I will say at one point in the beginning of my sales career, I've been in sales now for over 15 years. In the beginning, I stressed myself. So this is actually a literal sign. I literally actually made myself sick. I was so stressed and so worked up because working in sales, I'm very competitive and I cannot stand to be if I'm not the best and not number one. And I would do anything so much that I would just stress myself out and I would lose sleep. I like literally got physically sick because I was just so stressed. So that was my first sign where I'm like, okay, I don't want that feeling anymore. The feelings of like the butterflies or like the adrenaline of what used to drive me and that just that like fight or flight mode that used to motivate me. Now I actually hate it. I hate that feeling. To me, and now it's a bit of anxiousness. Like I don't like it. So I mean, there's physical signs, right? I think real this is something I'm working on, but just like trusting your instincts. If your initial thought or your initial feeling is no, or I don't want to do this, right? Trust that. And again, that's something I'm still working on because there's so many times where I look back, I'm like, man, I could have seen that sign, right? Oh man, I knew that. I had that feeling and I didn't trust it. There really is something to the power of our mind. And just if that first initial feeling is, oh no, I don't want to do it, like just trust it. And then, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's still something that I'm working through every day and different signs. I would say it's just everything is relating back to my work now and my job because I'm still in sales, but it's balancing the go-getter, have to be number one, kind of like that old athlete mentality versus the now person who realizes there's more to life and is that worth it? And it's okay to get a no. How do you learn from it? Just having just a more calm outlook on when things don't go my way. But again, it's going to be a struggle for the rest of my life. Like, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm preaching, that I'm all fixed and everything's great. Like, I say these things and I love speaking about it and I love doing podcasts because it's a great reminder for me. It puts me back in check real quick and that's that's one thing. Like, I still get emotional. There's been times here on this call that I've been holding back tears and I would get so angry at myself and I'd ask my therapist, like, why do I still cry? Why do I cry? How can I say the story? How can I tell the story about falling and all the miracles and I don't get teary-eyed at all. But when I get to talking about the lessons I've learned, where I am now, all the mental aspects of it, like right now, like I get teary-eyed and it drives me crazy. And she said, it's because you're still learning, Chelsey. You're still healing. Like, you're still trying to live out what you're preaching. And that resonates with me every time I have a conversation, because I'm like, oh, here come the tears. It's because I'm not there yet. Right. But I never will be. And that's okay too. I'm acknowledging that, and I'm working through it, and I'm aware of it. And so when these moments come up, I'll get off this call and realize, okay, at that moment when I was talking about that, I got a little emotional. There's some work I need to do. It's still there. But yeah, I think just trusting us, right? Trusting our heart, trusting our instincts, and just being very aware of our surroundings. I think when we get these horse blinders, and like I said, when I used to live in this rat race, you just have your horse blinders on, and all I wanted to do was be a number one. All I wanted to do was go get that sale. All I cared about was going and being the best. And you just lose sight. I look back on those years. I'm grateful for them, because I learned, I obviously, financially I've been able to do a lot of things, and I'm grateful for my success. I won't take that away from it. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that I also lost out on, right? There's a lot of trips I didn't take because I didn't want to take the time off from work, because I didn't want to lose out on a sale. Where we just have to realize that there's more to life. There's more to life.
Definitely. And talking about healing, I don't think that there is a person on this earth completely healed.
Yeah.
As much work we do with ourselves, it's still more work to be done.
Always. And I love that you say that, because if we're not constantly trying to get better and grow, I mean, that's the person that needs the most work. If they don't think they need it, they actually need it the most. And being vulnerable and realizing and taking that initiative of like, I want to be better. Right. Yeah. I mean, I would never, there's no way I'm healed or where I want to be. I never will be where I want to be. But how do you find that healthy balance of getting there? For me, it's not beating myself up. I'm very hard on myself. I'm my biggest critic. Hate making mistakes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. What sign are you?
I'm an Aquarius.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
It's how you describe yourself. It's a Virgo, which I am.
I do know that I'm a perfectionist and very hard on myself, and am constantly trying to be better. But to a fault sometimes, right? So give yourself grace. And that's a big part of the book as well. And one of the lessons that I've learned, I actually have a little puppy that I got after my accident and named her Grace to remind me every day, right? We all have a story. We all have a story. We've all been through something. And to your point, we're not all healed, right? And so when you're driving or when you're walking down the street and you see somebody having a tough time, just realize, like, we just give them grace and give yourself grace. And that's been a big thing for me, is that, beat myself up. Why am I not a go-getter anymore? Why am I not caring about being number one anymore? Why am I not enjoying that fight or flight mode as motivation anymore, and instead peeling it back and thinking, oh gosh, I don't want to do this? I've had to learn how to give myself grace in this new person that I have become, because that's just not who I am anymore. And that's okay. So that's a big reminder for myself as well. And that I write in the book is, you just give yourself grace and give others grace. We're all going through something. We all have a story. We all have one.
Definitely.
And we just have to understand, pray for them, and realize that, you know what, like, we're all going through something.
I was talking to Alexa the other day. She was telling me about something that happened at work, and we worked through the details. And then I said, do you realize how lucky we are that we are aware of what we're going through? Because some people just are stuck into their minds and they don't realize things around. So this is part of the healing, and it's amazing that we can do that.
Yeah. And that's what I, jokingly, right? Everybody says the first step is admitting you have the problem. I mean, it's true, right? Sit there and admit or realize that you're doing something wrong, or you're in the wrong, or you're struggling with something. Right there, you win. And then the next step is doing something about it, right? But if you can't get to that point of realizing that that's where you're at, that's where you get stuck. So if we could just let go and just be grateful and realize, I mean, there's always something else on the other side. We just have to open our eyes, to your point, and slow down and look for it and just be more aware.
Now the last question.
Yeah.
Besides your work and responsibilities, what is one thing in your life that makes you feel more alive?
When I'm able to inspire and motivate and help others. So whether that's just through a conversation with a stranger or a friend at the gym, or I volunteer at my church, I coach a girls volleyball team, and just anything that I can do where I'm helping people feel good. And like I said, just motivating them and inspiring them and letting them leave their interaction with me feeling better and happier. Like that's what drives me.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for being here with us.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
And we're so grateful that you are here.
Yeah,
thank
we are
you. Me
grateful.
too. I'm
And-
here to do this.
And just let our listeners know where they can find your book.
Yep.
I will also link it in the description, but just let them know.
So I hardcover, soft cover, Audible. So I narrated the audiobook. And then it's also on Kindle. But it's all through Amazon. So if you just go to Amazon, you'll be able to get it through all the different 4 different ways. But hard, soft, digital, and audio.
And it's called Beyond the Edge, A Survivor's Tale.
That's correct.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Our listeners, thank you for listening. For more conversations and more guests, please subscribe and follow us. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.